Fala, criativos, eu sou o Pedro Prado, eu sou o redator daqui da ZUPI e do Pixel Show, e hoje eu estou aqui para mediar esse Q&A com o Rutger Paulusse. Também gostaríamos de agradecer aqui o apoio cultural, né, do Consulado do Reino dos Países Baixos de São Paulo, que ajuda muito a gente, que é um parceiro muito grande, então eles tornam possíveis esses tipos de eventos aqui. And Rutger, hello man, how are you?
Hi.
Everything's fine?
Yeah, all is good here. I'm ready for it, and I'm really curious to hear the questions and see what people want to ask. So yeah, I'm good to go.
Perfect. So eu vou só dar um recado rápido. Como o Rutger, ele é holandês, nós vamos fazer esse Q&A em inglês, mas podem mandar suas perguntas em português e a gente vai vendo a possibilidade de traduzir essas perguntas. I was just given a quick warning here in Portuguese. So the first questions that we got here, Rutger, it's like, how did you end up here? Like, I mean, what path did you choose that brought you here as an artist, to be here today, giving a Q&A, about your career, your experience?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can talk for hours about it. So no, like basically everything, for me, everything started when I was young and I was a kid, and I was really into skateboarding. And with the skateboarding and that scene, kind of came graffiti. So when I was young, I got into graffiti and drawing letters, and I think that was the start. And then when I was around, I think 18 or 19, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. Like I finished high school and I was not really interested in anything. But I did enjoy drawing a lot and drawing letters. And so then at some point, someone just asked me like, why don't you go to art school? And that was really weird to me, because for me, art school was this institute where like artists that can draw really well come from, or painters or sculptors, and it was a really big thing in my head. So I was like, nah, I cannot really draw. Like I can draw letters, but that's about it. And then eventually I went to, I would say, an open day of the art school. So potential students can visit the school and look around and see what's going on. And then actually it kind of turned out that it was way more diverse than I ever expected. And yeah, I thought it was a good idea. So I applied for the school. I actually got rejected the first time, but they told me like, okay, we see on your graffiti and drawings you have something, but to make it into art school, you have to bring a little more to the table. So then I worked really hard for a year and tried again a year after. And I really built my portfolio in that time. I did some painting courses, and I just tried to, knock out a bunch of work and get in this time. And yeah, that actually worked. And then I did art school. I studied graphic design for 4 years. And then when I graduated, I was a graphic designer, or I had my papers, but to be honest, like it only really started then. So I was a graphic designer, and at that time I really enjoyed festivals and events, and also really the artwork that comes with all the festivals. And I was really intrigued by the artwork and that kind of stuff. So I really want to get into that. And I just started, taking on projects, and I started freelancing right away after art school. And I just did everything that I was, that was coming my way. So I did like so many diverse things. And after that, like I did graphic design, I did some artwork for posters, and at some point I realized that I really enjoyed making things from scratch. So as a graphic designer, I was mostly working with images, with photos or images that already existed, but I had the most fun like creating things from scratch. So then I got more into illustration, like really creating my own imagery, and illustration went from, it started with 2D, and then I think around that time, I think it was 2010 or 11, you really got like the 3D, like CGI came up, and I saw all this new work, and I could not even like Photoshop properly. So I was really blown away by all the 3D work, and I decided, okay, if I if I want to learn this, I need to do something. And then I decided to do an internship. So I was graduated for 3 years, freelanced those 3 years, and then I went to intern at an illustration agency in New York. And there they really taught me the craft of illustration, and also the first steps into 3D, into CGI. Yeah, and then after that internship, I worked there for a bit. Then I moved back to the Netherlands, and I really wanted to freelance again. And then I went from very figurative illustration work, like over the years, it became more and more abstract, and it became more and more minimalistic. I think in the beginning, the biggest or the most important part of my process was getting to know the techniques and also the aesthetics, like what are good compositions, how do you use color. And once I kind of had a feeling for that, I slowly moved into the stuff I make now, which is mostly abstract and minimalistic stuff. And then at some point you get an email from Pixel Show, and now I'm here.
That's true. That's true. Okay, we have a question here. I was going to ask, but I'm going to ask this one first. It's saying like this: in your opinion, what is the importance of the creative festivals around the world, such as Pixel Show International Creativity Festival?
To me, they really play an important role, to be honest. I think after I moved back to the Netherlands, I think around that time, it was the first time that I went to a design festival, and it was OFF in Barcelona. I don't know if you know that festival, but that was kind of the first festival that I visited. And I really came there for inspiration, like, okay, let's see what these people have to say. But then what was really interesting is that I met a lot of people there, like people that I only knew via the internet, or like I knew their work, but I never met them in real life. And for me, meeting those people and chatting to those people was really important for the process. Like, if you're a freelancer and a creative, sometimes you are really on your own little island. And for me, it was really good to meet other designers and other people, and also talk to them and realize that everyone is going through the same stuff, like all the insecurities, all the difficult things, dealing with clients. And for me, it was really important to check in with other people, and even like really good designers, but they were dealing with the same stuff, and that actually kind of was really important, because I didn't feel alone anymore. And it was like, oh, this is the industry, or oh, this is just like how it is, let's deal with this. So for me, it was really important, but more about the people I meet there than the talks, yeah, to be honest.
Yeah, that's perfect, because we started to notice that we are not isolated, right? We start to notice that it's not just our problem. It's like the whole scenario has problems. It's okay to face them. We are not alone, you know. I guess that's what you said.
Yeah.
I guess that you mentioned, when in the first question, you mentioned a little bit about your path as a creative, as an artist. And I was going to ask, did you had any kind of artistic reference in your family when you were a kid that, you know, that stimulated you to become a creative professional, or it was like you were the first one?
Yeah, I think basically the latter. Like for me, well, the creative inspiration was maybe like my mom. She was organizing music festivals, like blues music festivals. So for me, that's also like a creative outlet. Like programming and setting up a festival is also a creative endeavor. So that's something I realized later on. Like, oh yeah, there's some creativity there that I picked up. And actually my sister could draw really well. She never went to art school or did anything really specific with it, but she could draw really well. So there is like a hint of creativity in the family for sure, but not like a painter or not like the more obvious kind of creativity.
Okay, nice. People are asking here, actually, there's a question. I don't know, are you a football guy? I don't know.
No, no.
Not really, yeah, because people were like asking here if you prefer like Cruyff or Pelé. You know, Pelé, the Brazilian soccer player.
That's a question, like, I would love to answer that, but it would not make any sense
Yeah,
for
people were just asking here like, oh, he's from Netherlands, so he must answer about Cruyff, you know?
well, it's like it's very into how you say, the DNA or our culture as well. I actually played soccer for like 1.5 years. Like my dad was a very fanatic soccer player, so I tried it. But actually, it was not for me, and I want to go skateboarding and do graffiti.
Fair enough, fair enough. And let me ask you, you mentioned that you started with the graffiti and stuff, and how much did you care this, you know, this experience from graffiti to your recent work, you know, as a designer, as a sculptor? Did you bring actually these references from these past times in your life?
Yeah, it's actually really funny because like half a year ago, I started to get back into doing murals again. It's like a post graffiti kind of thing, and it is kind of interesting. Like right now, the stuff I do on walls is based on the stuff I've been doing in 3D, like more minimalistic, abstract stuff. But it's really fun because I'm drawing again, like I'm drawing a lot again, and I see a lot of things that I was drawing like years ago, and I still kind of have that rhythm or shapes or color use. And so I think in the end, everyone has some sort of, I would say, artistic view or stuff you like. And if I look back at all the steps I made, like from graffiti to graphic design to logo design, I did a lot of vector lettering, then I went into illustration, like all those kind of fields, there's a really obvious overlap between them. And it is like the minimalistic aspect where things like, even with my lettering, my vector lettering, everything was really bold and in your face. But it was all about the details, and I think that's also with my 3D work. It's the case with my 3D work as well. Like it looks very simple, like a bunch of cylinders with like nice materials. But to make it work, to make minimalistic stuff work, it's all about the details, and it's really difficult to say in the beginning, like when something is finished or not, because it's bold and it's minimalistic. But what makes this image look interesting? Like, why is this finished, or why is it a good image? It's only like 3 cylinders. And I think that's an interesting thing. And I also saw that in my old graffiti work. Like, it was really bad. Like, I look back at it and it's not really good. But it's funny to see that the use of color and the use of shapes has a relation with stuff I do now. Yeah.
Nice. And you know, what is your relation with your old works? Because there are some artists that they prefer not even to see the things that they did in the past because they would regret, you know. So what is your relation with the things that you did when you were starting?
Like, it's, if I look at the old stuff, I see like a process, and to me it's good to see that process, because like the stuff is really bad at some point, and it evolves, and it does give me, if I look back at my old stuff, I do see like kind of aesthetics, like, okay, I knew what I was heading to. But let me share my screen, because I did prepare some old things. Let me see. Okay, I need to set this up. Share screen. So do you see the, if I do like this, the space bar, do you see the image big, or do you only see my Finder?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're looking your Finder.
Well, okay, then let me try to switch to desktop.
Mm-hmm. No problem. Meanwhile, you can see the comments here. People are saying here that networking, it's a thing in these events, these creative events, that they have such an energy, you know, especially in events like Pixel Show. What else do we got here? Lembrando, todos que quiserem enviar perguntas, enviem aí em português, que a gente pode traduzir sem problemas para o Rutger. Não tem problema nenhum, não.
I think like right now, if I hit spacebar, do you see this?
Yes, I'm seeing this. I'm seeing this.
This is my early work, and like I think this is actually the first 3D project I did with a Christmas theme, and kind of this is how I started, with flyers for really dark music. And this was the first summer festival I did. Oh my God. And here you can see my poor Photoshop skills, but like I really enjoyed the festivals and the stuff that was going on in that industry, but like I was so bad technically. Like, look at this.
Let me just ask a thing. What is the context of this Salvations? It was a party?
Yeah, it was a music festival, like with a bunch of areas, and there is this aesthetic in music festivals, like kind of this, but this is a poor execution. And here, this is another project, like a Christmas card for some sort of organization. And to me, like being able to having this shadow photoshopped in, that was huge. But yeah, that was how I started. And then at some point, I was getting more into the more in typography, like this kind of stuff. And here I kind of found what I enjoy doing. It's like it's all typography, but it does have, well, this is not a good example, but like it has like this really bold starting point, like the minimalistic stuff I'm doing right now. And it's like more of these typographic illustrations and this vector lettering. I don't know if people can see it well. So this is basically what I've been doing before I got into 3D. And here you kind of see my, I say, fascination for 3D. It was already in my 2D work, and I tried to play around with dimensions a lot and textures, and yeah, so this is before I got into the 3D stuff that people mostly know of me. And now you see me again, probably.
Yeah, now I see you again. And yeah, keeping on this topic that we are talking, your first works, the path that you went through to develop your art, your vision. What were the difficulties that you faced, when you were trying to sell your first projects, when you were trying to, get in touch with big companies? What were the difficulties that you faced through this path?
I think for me, a really big struggle has always been the technique. Like for me, it's really difficult to learn a new technique or get into a technique. Like most people that want to learn 3D can, watch tutorials online and they teach themselves. Like I need like someone that explains it to me. Like I need an environment in which I can ask questions, and because like I cannot learn anything through tutorials. Like I'm really bad at it. So if I want to learn something, I need to find someone who's good at that. So I did an internship, but even now, if I want to learn something, I will ask a friend and, explain it to me. I want this. Can you explain it to me? And then once I know how to do it, I have to get really into it, spend a lot of time on it. And that's how I learn stuff. But has always been a difficult thing throughout the years. Like I want to make stuff, but I just couldn't. And like learning the technique was really difficult. And if I go back to the question, like what was difficult to get projects or sell my stuff to clients, like I kind of knew how marketing worked from an education I did before art school. So for me, that was not the most difficult part. Like, okay, how do I market the stuff? And it was basically, okay, make sure that I'm visible. So I had a website pretty early on, and I would send out portfolios, like printed portfolios, would send it out to potential clients, just call them, like really the kind of hardcore sales activities. But that was like easier for me, as the whole process of getting to a certain level or a certain quality level of the work.
Perfect. And what about these thing that you mentioned about, get in touch, calling these companies, sending portfolios? But what about the no's, the negative answers? What it was like to face them? I don't know if that was something that happened a lot, or if there was some time that a negative answer was kind of a rude no. I don't know.
No, I think like I'm precious about my work in a sense. So if people have an opinion about it that doesn't resonate with me, it's kind of difficult. But early on, I learned like, okay, but that's their view, and like I like it, and there's a bunch of people around me that like it. So there must be some client out there that also likes it, and that kind of also became the goal. Like, okay, I know this is good, I know it's very specific, but I'm gonna keep searching and sending out portfolios until I found like a client or an agency that sees the same thing. And luckily I did not really run into like bad experiences of people being rude. Like for me, I had to get used to the fact that people just don't answer, like, because that's kind of weird for me, or to me, that people just don't answer. If you take the effort to email something, like the least you can do is like, nah, I don't like it, good luck. But in retrospect, like looking at the amount of emails I get sometimes with also the same questions for feedback or portfolio reviews, I always email back, but I kind of realize now that sometimes I did send emails that were totally out of place. Like I would send my portfolio that was not really good yet to the biggest agency and asking to become an art director while I was not even able to, make a good illustration. So that was a lesson early on, that it's really important that you know what your level or your places at that specific moment. So if you're when I was working in 3D, I would love the work of a lot of 3D studios, but everything was about realism and very technical, and I was just not able to do that. So I did not really have to send them my portfolio because they were doing a different thing. and I knew that they were doing different thing as I was doing. So that was a good insight. Like, okay, maybe if you like their work, it was important for me to look very critical at my own work and like, does it have anything to do with that agency, or is there anything I could do for them? And that was kind of a good insight for me.
Nice, nice. And that happens a lot with amateurs designers. Sometimes they have these big companies that they admire the most, and then when they are starting doing things, that when they are starting, developing their identity, they just want to send, let me get in touch with them, let me send my portfolio. And sometimes that's what you said, it's not the proper time to that. Sometimes you need a little bit more of experience to get in touch with these big agencies. But here we have another question saying, how was your path between areas starting at design and up to what you love to do today? Like, which areas did you pass through it?
Besides the kind of technical, or I say types of work, I went from graphic design to illustration to abstract art. But for me, the most important steps were about self-consciousness, or like the more I became myself. Like, if you're young, you're a version of yourself, but you need to grow into becoming who you are. And I think for me, those were always really important steps when I went through something personal. And I got to know myself a bit better, then my work would get better as well. And because I think expressing yourself is so close to who you are, and it's so personal, that it's very important to keep developing yourself as a human. And I think at some point I realized that, like, it's more important for me to develop myself and love myself. Because if you love yourself and respect yourself, it's easier to put out your work, and people will see the positive energy or all the love you put into work. And at some point that became my most important job. Like, for me, like right now, I would always say, like, my most important job is to be happy, because if I'm happy, my work, the stuff I make, is good, and it's like evolving only more and more. And of course, in the beginning, you need to learn specific skills, techniques, or trades. But like right now, I think it's mostly about me being like happy, because then the work is best, and it's proven like every time, like for the past years, it keeps happening. Yeah.
Perfect. Actually, that happens, that the work that you do is a consequence of the life that you live, right? It happens a lot. That we have another one here. It's asking, Rutger, have you ever been plagiarized? Like, deal with copies? Anyone actually made a copy of your work, of your style, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, it happens a lot, especially like these days. With like the work can be seen and found everywhere. So I think it's a really important topic, and like how to deal with it. It kind of depends what it is. Like, my first urge is that I get upset and I feel angry. That's my ego. Like, I did this, blah, blah, blah. But I think it really depends on what it is and how people do it. Like, if it's, let's say, someone who's just starting, and that person is recreating something to learn something, and they put it online because they're very proud of they're very proud of what they made, and they were able to do that. So they're very proud that they put it online, but they don't credit me. Then for me, I just say, okay, but this is my work, and you recreate it. I think you should credit me. And that response is very defining. If that person is like, oh, sorry, I forgot it, it's not a problem. But I mean, I ran into some obnoxious people that told me like, oh, your stuff is so simple, it doesn't matter, everyone can make it. And I really need to block that, because that's difficult to deal with, because like you put a lot of time and effort in that kind of stuff. And I think in the end, like I work really hard to develop my style, and it will, like, people, not everyone will see that, or not everybody will know that for this minimalistic image with 3 cylinders, like it took me years to get to the point that I was able to do it technically, but also aesthetically. And then it took a lot of time that I had the guts to put it online and say, like, okay, this is what I make. I think it's good, because that was a long process as well. And people don't see that, and that's sometimes, yeah, you cannot blame people for not knowing things. That's kind of the issue. It can be painful or annoying, but in the end, like, can you blame someone for not knowing something? Like, I can try to teach that person, or say, like, okay, hey, this is how it works, and that's it. And yeah, luckily I don't have that bad of experience. Like I had a instance where I was asked to make an illustration, but I was not available. And then that agency kind of copied my work, and I had to email them, and we had an ongoing conversation, like, oh, this is my work. No, we made it. Yeah, but you copied my work. No, we made it. And then, but after like 2 or 3 months, they finally took it down. But that's, I mean, that's part of something as difficult as art and creativity. It's like very difficult to pinpoint when does inspiration turn into plagiarism. It's like a really difficult subject as well.
Yeah, the artists here in the chat, they are just saying that it's truly complicated, because people think that, you know, internet is like no man's land, you know, so you can do anything that you want. There's no regulation, there's no laws, so it's, you know, it's fine, it's okay to do like that. Actually, that happens a lot in Brazil, because illustrators, mainly, sometimes they do a drawing, you know, illustration, and sometimes you go to a website and there's like a t-shirt with your illustration. Like, man, how that happened, right? And that happens a lot. That's a truly problem. Mention what you said about the design market. For those who is still kind of amateurs, what would you, you know, give an advice to the ones who wants to become more professional, you know?
Like what I learned throughout the years is that it doesn't really matter what you do or how you do things, but you have to do it with the right energy, and you have to do it with love. And like, even now I run into that issue that sometimes I do stuff because I think I need to do it to achieve certain goals. But in the end, it always turns out that as long as I have fun with things, it'll work out, right? Maybe there's only one way that stuff works for a person. There is no blueprint for things, and maybe a specific thing works for that person and that worked perfectly, and you want the same thing, so you try to do the same, take the same path, but that's not how it works. For me, it's like, if I lose joy in what I do, like, that's like alarm bells. Like, then it's time to revisit, like, why am I doing this? Oh, I'm doing it for the money. And that's okay as well sometimes, but not every day, because then you'll lose interest. So I think for me, it's really important to keep asking myself the question, like, why are you doing this? Are you doing this because you like it, or another reason? And whatever that reason is that a valid reason? So I think, and it's maybe a cliche, but like, I think it's about doing what you love, and then keep the faith. Even when it's difficult or tough, try to keep the faith.
Keep the faith is the best answer that you could give to the ones that are trying to become more professionals. Keep the faith. We have another one here saying, what was the kind of project or product that made you a living? Like, I guess that the one that, you know, that launched your career.
I think what made my career viable was actually, I was like, a friend of mine, he had a printing company. He would print those big big banners, like the one you have in the back, like they would print it. And like my first freelance project was I would get into their office and do a little bit of graphic design and designing these things. And I think I was doing that for a few hours a week. And then after a certain time, I was able to buy like a laptop, like a MacBook. And I think that was kind of the start, like that friend giving me the opportunity to make some money. And like the stuff I was designing is terrible, like even worse as worse as the stuff that I showed before. But like I think that was like the first gig that made it all viable, or that started it off.
Perfect, perfect. It's good to have people that have our back in this kind of situation, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like there's so many ways to get into design, or so many ways to start freelancing, and yeah, you would always need someone that has faith in you. That's why you need to keep the faith. Like it's a two-way street.
That's it. That's it. We have another one here saying, "How do you know?" That's a perfect, question for creative professionals. How do you know a work is finished?
It's a feeling.
That's a
Like,
nightmare, right?
yeah, it's like for me, I kind of know when, like for me, the threshold or the thing is that like I would finish something and then I would prepare it to, show it online, like showing it on my website or on social media. And when there's this moment that I keep pushing it forward, like showing it to the world, then I know I need to revisit it. Like I have a bunch of projects, like even now, that are finished, or I decided it was finished, but somehow I didn't post it yet, or I didn't show it to anyone, and that's my cue. Then I know, like, no, this is not or as good as the rest, or it doesn't have the same quality level as the other stuff. And it's this feeling from the inside that you learn to know, because like it has to evolve or grow over the years. You need to be able to recognize at some point, like, what is this feeling? It's like this weird sense, like it's done, but still I don't know. And I think that's the most important tool.
That's it. It's sort of a feeling, right? It's sort of a feeling.
Yeah, that's all I can say.
We have another one here saying, I don't know if you ever saw different things around the world, but what could you say there are the unique things in the creative scenario of Netherlands?
I think like the how you say, the heritage of Dutch design. There's definitely a thing with Dutch design, like with graphic design, and I don't know the years exactly. Graphic design was a huge thing, and it was very popular. Like Dutch graphic design was very popular around the world, as well as product design. And I think that kind of a heritage, or me being at art school, seeing all these really good graphic designers being like famous around the world, that was an inspiration. But I think at some point the Netherlands kind of lost its unique touch. And like at some point at art school, I realized saying to, or like thinking about all these examples, like, okay, you can keep talking about Dutch design or Dutch graphic design like it's the best in the world, but we passed that stage. Like now it's this kid on the attic with his computer. He is creating the best stuff, and he's going to be the next famous designer. And I think that kind of evolves. But like I think it's good that the Netherlands, they do have some nice heritage and a nice history with really good design. But like right now, there's nothing specific that I can say that I think is good these days.
Okay, nice. And have you ever got any kind of background from other countries in your work? I don't know. If you ever got any kind of reference from, I don't know, from America or from,
I think
from South America, I don't know.
I did intern and work in New York, so that was a big step, and that was really important. And it did not really like, of course, the aesthetics that of the agency I worked, that influenced me, of course. But I think mostly it was about work ethic and how things were done. Like New York was very vibrant, very intense. People were working really hard, and in that sense, that was an inspiration, but not aesthetically per se, I think.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Just checking now the chat if we have new answers. I'm just going to give a quick message in português. Lembrando, gente, a gente está se encaminhando agora para o final aqui do Enem, então se você tiver mais perguntas, vai mandando aí no chat para a gente for fazendo esse tempinho que ainda nós temos aqui. But anyway, Rutger, continuing here, we have another one. Do you have any tips? I don't know how did you work in your home office style, but do you have any tips to be more productive in our routine as a creative professional?
Yes, I think for me, the most important insight is not about the amount of hours you put in, but what hours. Like I learned that it's really important to do nothing, and you should not force. Like sometimes you need to, you're not, you have moments that you don't have a lot of inspiration, and you have this project that you really need to work on because it's for a client and deadline. Those are the moments that you have to push, but not too long. Like I would do that for an hour, and if something's coming, or like if something is happening that's interesting, I will continue. But if it's it feels like I'm forcing it too much, I try to do something else and then get back to it later. Like, because I don't think it's about the amount of hours. It's about like what moment you do, or what activity you do when. And at some point I found kind of my rhythm, that like my most effective hours were what was it, like between 2 and 4, and then 6 and 8 in the evening. So I would always schedule like the most creative things in those moments. And then at some point I realized, like, wow, sometimes this specific piece took 8 hours, but if I would be in the right mindset and the right energy, I could have done it in 2. And I think like it's this thing they say, don't work harder, work smarter. I think that smarter is about like your mindset has to be right, and it doesn't mean that you never have to force yourself, but just not too long. Like sometimes when you don't feel like doing something, it's good to just push yourself and say, okay, sit down and make a start, and then go from there. It's like that's how it works for me.
Yeah, that's totally true, because sometimes we spend like 8 hours in front of the laptop, and nothing comes from that. Nothing comes from that. You just, you just keep pushing, and nothing comes from that. So that's something that we have to. It's quality time. The thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's the term.
It's quality time. But you mentioned the deadlines and stuff. I was going to ask you: have you ever saw yourself in a situation that you didn't like the final result of a project, but you were too tight to the deadline with the client, and you had to, send it right away? You didn't have the option to, okay, I need more time, but you didn't have that option. So,
I think I am not satisfied with the end result 90% of the times. But like later on, like if I finish the project, I have to put it away, and then like a few weeks later, I have to look at it again, and then I can only judge it. But like, yeah, there were a lot of times that you didn't have the time to finish it, and I was really unhappy and really dissatisfied. But then 2 months later, I look at it, and then you really see the work. You don't see the stuff that you missed or could have improved, but you just I need time to distance myself from the work, and then later on, it's not always that bad. But yeah, I think deadlines can be tough for the creativity, but they can also really help the creativity. Like it's with everything. There's like a dualism in there as well. But yeah, I'm not good with the end results. I never really like it, and sometimes it takes like half a year before I post it online, like the client work. Like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Oh, it's actually really good. And then I start preparing the presentation, and then I put it online, and then I get the response. I was like, oh wow, this was actually really good. So even there's a thing, like if you get too emotional attached or you spend too much time with something, you don't see it for what it is anymore.
Yeah, that happens a lot. Sometimes we need to take a time. We need to take a break with what we're working with. Anyway, we have two new questions here. The first one, how it worked actually, the pricing on your projects when you were starting. How did you get this idea of how am I going to, put a price in my projects? What was your experience with that?
The most important thing was for me to define an hourly rate. And luckily in art school, we once had we had a lecture about, okay, how do you define your hourly rate? So that was really helpful. And once you kind of decided on an hourly rate, you need to multiply that with the amount of hours that you're going to put in. And in the beginning, you don't know that. You really don't know that. Or with difficult projects, it's really difficult. So I think in the beginning, it is really difficult. But I think like getting to or defining your hourly rate, I think that should be based on talks with people around you and people that do the same thing, and looking at your level and what you do, and then like the amount of hours, that's experience. And sometimes you will make a terrible mistake. It takes like a lot more. I think the first project I did as a freelancer, we had to make like a little booklet, and we're like, oh, 2 weeks. Oh yeah, it's fine. But like it was terrible. Like I worked maybe 5 weeks in those 2 weeks. So yeah, but those are very valuable lessons. And I think there are some, you also have like some things have a certain market value. Like for me, when I was doing the events, there was just this specific amount for this kind of event, like this kind of with this capacity. So that's also good to know if there's some certain market value and a market price for something.
That's it. Something that happens a lot is that when we are starting as a freelancer, sometimes we actually do get a client and we put our price, and then the client accept it at first. So you ask yourself, am I too, could I ask more? Is this too low? Am I wrong? So that happens a lot too.
Yeah, so
that
true.
that comes from experience.
Yeah.
That's our valuable lessons.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have a new one here. How do you find your clients and promote yourself? And or if today your clients come to you, they find you, or do you have an agent or an agency working with you?
I think in the beginning, I got my clients by, looking for potential clients and sending in them portfolios. In the beginning, I would always make sure that it was special. So I would print a nice book, or I remember sending screen prints to potential clients. So that's how it started for me. Then secondly, I went looking for agents, and I did work with various agents, and I think that was helpful to get projects as well in the beginning. But I also think the role of an agent has been changing since the internet, and there are so many platforms to present yourself, and so that kind of structure changed. And these days, I think I just get most of the clients through an online platform like Behance, that I just noticed that a lot of cool projects or cool clients must have found me on Behance, like so. But it's different for everyone. I have friends that get projects through Instagram or through Twitter even. So I think that's also the platform that works for someone differs, and it also really depends on the work. Like I don't know if Dribble is still a thing, but I remember that was a really good platform for UX and UI and icon design. But for me, the work I made was it just didn't look bad, didn't look good on the platform because it was too small. And I think that's why Behance really works for me, because I get to do a project presentation and show how it's made, or the effort that's put in, or explain the process a bit. Because I think for my work, the process is important. So for me, Behance works. Like Instagram, I don't think I got ever really a project out of it. While a lot of people around me, Instagram is the most important platform. So I think you need to try things, and I think the most important thing is that the work looks good on that specific platform, and then it'll find a way.
That's it. That's it. Perfect. And you mentioned Instagram, Behance, and stuff. Have you ever felt any kind of challenging situation? Because we know that social media has these algorithms, so it's sometimes challenging for a creator to face these things. So, have you ever felt this with your art?
Yeah, definitely. Like I think when I started, Instagram did not exist. I remember, then Instagram came about, and in the beginning, it really started off really pure, of course. Like it was about sharing the stuff you've been doing, and then like 10 years later, it's a marketing platform, or well, that's how I see it. All the stuff I see is marketing, and like what happened in between was the whole thing with the algorithms and how they changed it. And yeah, I didn't like it. Like every time it changed and the algorithm changed, and then because then it took away the spontaneity of it like a lot for me. So, but that's also the reason that I not really into Instagram like that, because the algorithm is too defining, and stuff gets too weird. It's like I don't know if this is fair, or I have so many followers and only this many people see it. And like for me as a user and as a viewer of Instagram, I remember that I don't know, it was a specific algorithm they introduced. And I got really upset because usually I would see everything from all the people I would follow. And that made sense. I could understand that. And then at some point it was like, hey, this person, did he stop designing? And then I would look up that person and I would see all the work I missed. And yeah, I was pissed about that for a month. Like I was like, why I decide what I want to see? Why is some algorithm deciding what I want to see? And of course, I know algorithms also have a very useful aspect. So I'm not saying it, but for me, yeah, that was a bit tough in the beginning. I could not understand why they would use an algorithm. Like later, it makes sense for marketing purposes and whatnot. But yeah, for me, when it got introduced, I didn't like it.
Yeah, it seems like a little bit of an unfair relation, right? There are so much people that are producing them for these platforms, like especially photographers, filmmakers. They are always doing a bunch of stuff, like designers. They are always doing stuff for Instagram, and now they are not the trend anymore. They're not the best child. It's difficult to change that.
Yeah.
Now we are going to the end of our Q&A. So I was going to ask you a question. There is anything that you didn't learn yet and you want to develop yourself on it?
Ooh, yeah, I think so many things, but it are more I think, goals. And to get to a goal, you always have to go through a process and learn new things. And I mean, I would love to do like an exhibition or like in a gallery, and that's something that's like a goal. And to get there, yeah, I need to get to know that kind of industry, and how do you get that kind of exhibitions, and how do I get to that point, and what would I want to do there. So there's a lot to learn still, and there's always like technical things, like to be really concrete, I want to learn Windows. I had to switch to Windows after like many years of working on Mac, and now I need to, get a hold of how everything works. So that's a very concrete thing on my list to learn.
Yeah, changing from Mac to Windows, it's a whole new journey that you're going to face now.
It's a journey for sure.
Yeah, it's a new life experience that you're going to face. I guess that we are in the end of our Q&A. So, I would like to thank you for being here, for have your time here, sharing your experience, your projects, your lifetime as a creative professional. And if you want to give a final message to our audience. No, it's
thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun. Like for me, if a design festival doesn't have the human interaction, it's a bit difficult for me. But that's why I really enjoy doing a Q&A. So there's some real interaction, and I've been enjoying this a lot. Like time was flying by. So thank you for that. And that's I mean, I hope that next year the Pixel Show can go on like in real life, and I would want to be there then.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. When we got a physical version of Pixel Show, we hope to see you here. It would be awesome,
You know where to find me.
So thanks, Rutger.
Thank
a
you.
todos que estavam aqui assistindo a gente, muito obrigado por estarem presentes, assistirem, enviarem as suas perguntas. E não se esqueçam, toda semana nós estamos no projeto da ZUPI Live, que nós temos uma bateria incrível de conteúdos. Toda semana está tendo lançamento novo. E também, se você perdeu, você pode acessar o Clube Pixel Show e assistir esses conteúdos que estão rolando agora e outros mais que já estão lá na plataforma, tá certo? Então é isso, gente. Continuem sempre abastecendo com ideias. Thanks, Rutger.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.